Welcome to Cedar Creek Homestead. This is Howie, and I got a little video here today about putting up electric fence. And different people have different ways that they put up electric fence, and so I'm not saying any one way you have to do it specifically, but I got my way, and I've tried some different ways, and I had people tell me ways to do electric fence. Some of them have worked and some things haven't. One of the biggest things I've learned is to have a good ground. And here's here I buy a Sure Enough ground rod. They even have a galvanized looking ground rod. Copper is a better conductor. This is a copper plated, it's not pure copper. And I use a good connector. And the more ground or better ground you got, the better. So if this was down deeper, it would even do better. But we hit a rock. Also, I'm liable to want to pull this out one day so I can still get it. But it'll do the job. And if the ground's wet, you even do better. If it's real dry and you're in a drought, you can pour water around your ground lug. Or your grounding rod, I mean. Not the lug. This is what I'd call a ground lug. And your rod down there, you can pour some water and kind of soak at it, and it just makes sense. Electricity likes to travel in water. As far as fence chargers, I like this here Gallagher brand. I've used several different ones. This is a little one, the S10. They make a S15. They even make a S20 or 30, whatever it is. It's a lot bigger, like double the panel of this. The S15 looks pretty much similar to this. The reason I like using several little ones, for one reason is I'll have my fences in sections. So if something happens to this charger, it's got a shorter section that's out. If you use a big charger and then something happens between one end to the other. But I've got some big ones, but I just like these little S10s. I usually get them for, I think they're about $115 at our co-op store. They're very easy to operate. I'm not selling Gallagher. I've had other brands that work great, but I've kind of gotten hooked on these. To change the battery, you take this off and take this one little screw out. This bottom will come off, and you can change the battery real easy. And I also like the fact that you have this thing here made that you can mount that pretty much any direction you want to on a T-post. A lot of them don't have anything to mount to a T-post, and most of the time I need one that'll mount on a T-post. Steel T-post like that right there. And so some of them will say an additional bracket, which costs you more money. And but anyway, I've had several of these for 2 or 3 years, and I have not had to change the batteries in them. But when you first get one of these, the battery is going to be unhooked. So you'll go around here and turn it on, and if there isn't a green light flashing right there, there should be a light flashing. I'll turn it on here. See that little green light flashing? I hope that's showing up in the camera. But anyway, if that little light don't flash, your deal ain't no good. You done got it hooked up right, so the battery's bad, something's going on. If that light's bright and flashing, this thing should put out a charge. It's also real easy to hook your ground. It's got an obvious green for ground, red. I use this wire because I do some electrical stuff in my business, and I just have it, so I get some. But as long as I'd prefer copper. Then I just bring it down here and strip some of the copper wire. I've got it wrapped around there so it don't come off, and I just wrap that real good around here, and it could even be a little better than it is. But anyway, I'll wrap it around. This is poly rope here, the main leaders, and I've got 2 strands. If you really want a good fence and to keep them in, put your 2 strands. If you're not worried about them jumping, or it's an inside fence, no big deal. Over here behind these trees back up in here is a field. We like to deer hunt that field, so I like to keep the deer out of that. Mostly my son loves to hunt it, but I plant that. I just got through planting it with wheat. I did it last year. I probably had half the deer in our county here last year. I mean, it was thick with deer. and my son killed one buck out of all the deer that was in here, but I was really feeding them. But they love to come in here. It's a secure location. Pretty much they get in here and they eat, and they do really well. But anyway, this year we got a bunch of bucks coming in, and looks like gonna be excellent hunting. And we got some big ones on camera this year, and there was a big one in here last year I could have killed. But I actually enjoy, I've killed lots of deer, and I love to eat deer meat. But last year my son was gone during the first few days of gun season, and I thought, you know, I'm not going to kill this deer. I'm going to have to clean it by myself. I ain't really in the mood for it. I was enjoying watching him every evening. This one particular big buck would come out, and a bunch of does, and it's just fun to watch. But I'm not saying nothing against hunting, because I love it. But what I'm doing is we're trying to keep the cows off of that area, and I won't let the cows on this field right here. This field here is just about a 10-acre spot, but I won't let any of the cows on until probably come springtime. And it gives a place for the deer, the turkeys, and I've even got a wild hog problem. Now, but anyway, I don't really want the wild hogs, but don't mind the deer and the turkeys. But it gives them a place to come in and eat, and it's secluded here, and kind of protects them. Even though we may take one or two ourselves, they're protected from the road hunters and all that stuff. But anyway, I want to keep the cows off of that. I also, this field behind here is probably 30-40 acres back in here, and I've got wheat I just planted on here too, and I don't mind the cows. They'll actually come off of this, but I'll probably let them in a little bit easier. And last year I kept like 10 or 12 heifers in on this particular field right here, and did not let them go up here on this little 10-acre deal. But anyway, the fence I had, I used this rope, not rope, but wire stuff, and I'll show it to you. This little stuff right here, see how little that is? That's what I used, and it didn't hold up. Now the reason this is like this should be ran in here. And my son come up here and helped, and he ran this top strand. He's 21 years old, and he helps me. And he said, Dad, I want to go up and get that fence back up, because we took the old one down. So he didn't think this would go in this hole, or it was too much trouble. But you really don't want to cut your wire. But see how thick this rope is here? And it is hard to get it into that little hole, but that wouldn't have been any problem to have done. But instead, he's done this. The less amount of connections you have, the better. Another thing is, as you can see, my electric fencer is right. I'm trying to see it in the camera. Oh, right there it is. And I'm going from there and all the way down through here. It's a pretty good distance here. So the best way to have done was about halfway down here somewhere to put my fence charger, and put a T-post, put my fence charger on it, hooked it up, and then the electric would have been going both ways. It had been going that way and this way. If a short happens, something happens like down this way, that way your whole fence isn't shorted back the other way. You still got some charge going out. But since my son put the charger over here, that's okay. I appreciate his help. And young people, we need to get them involved in farming and ranching. So when somebody's trying, I don't have a problem with someone to try. And we discussed that, and he even brought a steel post and said we'd move it back down here if that would be better. But I told him for right now we'd just leave it right there. That's no big deal. I'm not, not mad about it or nothing. It's just a learning thing, but on my personal preference. But it's working. It's charging this fence. It's going all the way down, even though he's got a splice here, and I don't like that splice. I would have rather had this up here, but for whatever reason, and he had plenty of wire back down the other end to have ran it here. So when I helped him put the bottom strand on, we tied it in there like that, so we'd have a better connection. Because also, you run the risk of not having a good connection on your gates these deals here. So when you go to open your gate, if you hang on to that, as long as you got your hand in this thing, if your fencer is on, you're not going to get shocked. But if you let it slip off and touch that, ow, it's going to get you. So you don't want to get shocked. And no, this fence isn't on, or I would have done more than just ow. These dudes are pretty powerful. But anyhow, you run the risk of not having a connection there. So what we do is we run a jumper over. So just in case this one lost up here, you'd have a jumper here. We've also got a jumper where our charger is, and I've got a jumper way down there so that both strands here are charged all the way down. And I just use these little step-in posts. I do sometimes have had cows want to jump over this, but it's very rare. If you get one that's jumping too much, there's a way to fix that. Just get rid of the cow. One other thing is, I'm using this on a telephone pole. If you notice there, I'm putting the insulators, got them nailed in here. Now in your area, they may have a fit with you about that. I've never had them say anything, but I have been told that it's really not proper to use the telephone poles. But I'll tell you why I don't mind using the telephone pole. I keep this all clean. You can see how wide of a path this is, all the way down to the highway. There's about a mile pathway here that I try to keep clean. So the electric company, they don't have to worry too much about this. Now one of these trees to the left or the right could fall on it, but I try to keep everything trimmed back the best I can. They come through here and put some new poles a year or so ago, and there was a cedar up here and one back down there, and they were doing some trimming. And I told them, I said, just trim those trees back, get them out, it ain't gonna bother me. So I told them to actually cut that tree completely down up there on the corner. You probably can't tell it, but there's a cedar there, and it had grown up really close to the power lines, and they put a new pole in there. And I said, you can just cut that whole thing down, but they didn't. They trimmed it way back though, but it wouldn't have bothered me if they cut it, and I may end up cutting it completely out. I have cut trees back all along through here, and I try to keep the power line. Now coming here, we're on the very end of the line, so getting here, it may be hard for the electric to get here, but at least my section through this goes a long ways to where the source is, and like I say, we're on the very end of it. But I feel like since I keep all that clean, if I want to use their poles a little bit, I can. And we also have highline towers through. I keep that clean so they don't have to mess with it. Sometimes they'll come through and going to be working on it and ask if there's any trees I won't cut back further, and I'll show them one or two that, you know, maybe they cut them back would help them, and they agree and cut them back. When we lived in Arkansas, we had a big pine tree that grew up into the power line, and it actually wasn't touching it, but when we had an ice storm, it weighted down on the power line and we lost electricity. So the electric company come out and they said, we need to trim that back. Do you mind if we trim it back so it don't happen again? And I said, I don't mind at all. I'd rather have electric than not electric. And so the people said, well, it would be better to cut the tree completely down. And I said, well, you get her cut down if that's what you feel's the best. You just cut the thing down. But anyway, so I don't have a problem with using this. I'm not hurting their pole. It's not going to damage. The highline people over here, I've got two high lines that come across up here and one on the back side up here, and I have ran wires to their poles and wrapped around the, like this one is here. I've got these insulators. Well, I've got bob wire on some of them wrapped around, using them as a fence. And they well, they've come and changed out their poles, the big highline power people, and when they done it, they just put my fence right back on their new poles and stuff, and they've told me no problem. Now this, our private electric here, they haven't told me that it's okay to use their pole, and they probably don't want everybody doing it because they could possibly need to climb up this thing or whatever. But if they did, you know, they can turn that off. They have to come by the house and figure out how to get in here anyway, so I'd come over and turn the electric fencer off, and I'm sure they know how to do all that because my fencer's solar. That's another thing I like, is these solar chargers. You don't have to run it. We're way out here, a long way from 120 volt source. I know we got power poles everywhere, but no way to I mean, we'd have to run lots of cord to get it here. But anyway, I like these little step-in posts. They're super easy to pull in and out. And like I say, I like to run 2 strands. You just push in like that. And if the ground's hard, you might need a little rubber mallet or something to hit on the top of this with. Gallagher makes some that's just got like a pigtail loop on top, and you can only do 1 strand, and those work real good too. And I have used them where it's an inside fence, and that's what this fence is. On my perimeter exterior fences, I like to use barbed wire, something really strong, instead of the electric, because the cows can go through that. But so far I have not ever had the cows break this poly rope. That stuff holds up really good, and I've not had them break it. I also have a problem here because wild hogs, and those wild hogs will come in and hit this wire, and instead of backing up, if they get shocked, them dummies will keep going forward. Well, with this stuff, they may pull it out and they might knock a pole or 2 down, but they won't break it. The wild hogs won't, and them wild hogs are something else. So anyway, the deer come through here. There's the deer. When they want through here, they just jump over it. This is nothing to them. But anyway, we got that's a little bit on electric fencing. I've had some ask me different questions lately about electric fencing. While I was doing this video, I just wanted to show, we just put this up here, and I just want to show everybody why and how we done it. You could even use T-posts instead of these push-ins. It's just these push-ins are $1.99, I believe, at the co-op store, and or the farm store. Tractor Supply, I think they're $1.99 also. So you can go in and buy them for $1.99, and they go in so easy. And them T-posts, you know, you got to drive them in, and then you risk bending them. And you know, T-posts now around here are about $4 a piece, so you're doubling your expense. Although they're a whole lot stronger, and you can keep reusing them. I reuse these though. These T-posts, I buy them in a big box, and like, you know, 20-30 posts, however many comes in a whole case of them, and keep them here. And then I reuse them though if I need them. I got a little area I keep the used ones at, and I got them there anytime I need them. I bought new ones for this here, but anyway, I'm gonna go here. If you're not subscribed, if you'd subscribe, would greatly appreciate it. We want to say thank you to all of our subscribers and our loyal viewers. And if you got a comment, leave it. God bless you. We'll see you next time, and we're gone.